and welcome to Reimagining Waste, and this is part of the Student Switch Off webinar series. So welcome, my name is Kedijah Eaves-O'Connor and I'm a project manager for SRTK, and I'm here with Marta Nowicka, who is also a project manager for SRTK as well. So the webinar contents then, we have firstly an introduction to SRTK and Student Switch Off. We'll discuss why do we waste so much. We'll go through the concepts of zero waste, and we'll look at what the different ways are of how we can reimagine waste afterwards. So as an introduction to SRTK then and what we do, we are an educational charity and we were created in 2019, and this was in response to the climate emergency and ecological crisis. And SRTK is part of the NUS family, the National Union of Students, and we have been at the forefront of social change since 1992. And we are working to move sustainability from being a niche subject to that relatively few study to something that all students learn about. And this is, we believe that all students should be sustainability students. And we also work to create cohort after cohort of positive solutions-driven students who go on to make the world a more sustainable place. And we also work to shift society from an obsession with short-term profit to long-term benefit. And we aim to do those things by getting more students leading on and learning about sustainability, embedding sustainability in formal education from early years to adult learning, and to also make sustainability more inclusive for everybody. So as I mentioned before, this webinar is part of Student Switch Off, and this is one of SRTK's sustainability campaigns for students. So it principally focuses on sustainable living and sustainable homes. So the campaign runs as competition between residences on different university campuses to encourage and support students to live in a more sustainable way. And we encourage students to take personal action on the climate and the ecological crisis through taking and sharing simple actions. So each campus runs the competition in a slightly different way with different types of prizes, and there are individual prizes to be won throughout the year through our social media competitions as well. And student volunteers help to raise awareness and mobilise others to make the campaign a success overall. So I will hand over to Marta, who will discuss why we waste so much.
Thank you, Kedijah. And yeah, that is an excellent question. And essentially, it's because humans are quite a peculiar species when we look at it from a global perspective, because ecologically, life on Earth exists in cycles. So energy, resources and nutrients are taken from the environment and used by organisms, and then they return to the environment. And the cycle just continues. This makes the system sustainable in the long term. And humans are very unique among other inhabitants of our planet because we actually produce waste, which then remains as waste. It doesn't go back to the environment as resources. It's just kind of there in landfills and dumps. So what we do, we use resources in lines instead of in cycles. So we take them from the earth, we make stuff out of it, and then we dispose of that stuff when we don't want it anymore. And the question is, why do we produce all this stuff? Essentially because of capitalism. Because the inherent nature of our society is built for consumerism. So capitalism is an economic system in which private actors own and control property and according to their interests, and demand and supply freely set prices in markets. The essential feature of it is the motive to make a profit. And consumerism encourages the acquisition of goods and services in ever increasing amounts. So after the Industrial Revolution, especially in the 20th century, when mass production became mainstream, it led to overproduction. So more goods were made than people wanted to buy. Manufacturers then introduced planned obsolescence. This essentially means that things break by design. So for example, an iPhone would stop working suddenly after 3 years from purchase, despite no previous faults. And also heavy advertising was another tool that they used to manipulate consumer spending. In the modern capitalist society, much of what we consume isn't really functional. We don't really need it to survive, and we consume it for the purpose of consuming itself. The issue is that all that stuff has to go somewhere, and we are really, really detached from our waste in the global north in particular. Even in the language that we use to talk about it, we throw things away, but it doesn't actually go away. It doesn't disappear. It always goes somewhere. And unfortunately, wealthier countries such as the USA and the UK produce much more waste than poorer ones. Much of the waste produced in many poorer countries wouldn't be there if it wasn't directly linked to consumer demand for products sold in the wealthier countries, because the West outsources a lot of its labor and a lot of its production to the global South. And also a lot of the waste produced in the global North is then shipped away to other countries, predominantly in the global South. So the production system that we globally exist in pushes the waste into the countries that aren't really responsible for it. And for a bit of a case study, I'll just briefly talk about how the fast fashion industry destroys the traditional Ghanaian textile industry. So Ghana has a long history of textile and clothing craftsmanship. Ghana is in West Africa. And unfortunately now that craftsmanship isn't as widespread and valued as it once was, thanks to fast fashion. Nowadays, Ghana, and especially the Kantamanto market and its capital city Accra, is a destination to which the UK, Europe, North America and Australia send 15 million used pieces of clothing a week. Around 40% of all of that clothing is very, very low quality, such low quality that it simply becomes waste immediately. So basically what happens is the global North sends their rubbish in the form of clothing to Ghana, and then it costs the city of Accra to mitigate that waste. So Ghanaian tax money is used to deal with the waste of the wealthy nations. This happens with clothing and other items in other places around the world as well. So for example, the photo that you can see on the slide is from Nicaragua. And we just have another photo to illustrate specifically the case that Africa is not a dumpster. This was taken during the global climate strike in September 2020 in Kenya, where an activist network brought this to attention during the global climate protest for the strike. We really cannot handle the levels of waste that we produce for much longer, and by we, I mean both the people and the planet that we live on. A lot of the waste coming from production of things is toxic, it pollutes the environment, harms wildlife, and creates health hazards for the affected communities, both around, for example, polluted rivers, but also people in factories that produce the items. It's really time to reimagine how we manage our waste, especially those of us that produce a lot of it. Not all 7 billion people on the planet contribute to landfills to the same extent. And we need to reimagine what waste actually is. So this is what we're hoping to inspire with this webinar. And I'm going to hand over to Kedijah now to talk about the concept of zero waste.
Thank you, Marta. So as an initial definition, I've got one from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and they say that zero waste is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So some of you may be thinking, how can I achieve zero waste? Is that really possible? So in answer to that, more than anything, zero waste is a concept, and it considers the life cycle of products and goods that we regularly use. So rather than using goods in a linear way, as Marta mentioned before, which typically involves using and then disposing, zero waste instead encourages us to refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. So as humans, we will always produce waste. However, the concept of zero waste allows us to reframe our thinking and our approach to waste in a more sustainable way. So here we can see the waste hierarchy, and this indicates the order of preference for action to reduce and manage waste. So the aim of the hierarchy is to extract the maximum practical benefits from products and to generate the minimum amount of waste. So this type of hierarchy is typically used by waste management authorities, businesses and public bodies, which generate, handle and or also treat waste. However, we can also apply the hierarchy to our everyday lives. So next, I will discuss each one of the 5 R's of zero waste, all of which are referred to in the hierarchy, and give some examples on what each one would look like in practical terms. So firstly, we have refuse. So you can refuse a product to prevent creating waste in the first place. And this is cited as one of the most powerful of the 5 R's. So it's really important to think and to ask yourself, what is the reason for buying the product? Is it a want or a need? Would I be able to reuse it in the future, or is it only single use? And are there better or more sustainable alternatives to the products that I wish to buy? So there are things that you will always need to buy, such as food, for example, to live. So to reduce waste, you can try and support sustainable businesses, shop at local markets, and or take your own containers to a zero waste shop nearby you. So the next one that we have is reduce. So consumerism makes us believe that we need multiple products, many of which are pretty much the same thing. So you may see in the shop a bathroom cleaner, then you may see strong bathroom cleaner, then you may see super strong bathroom cleaner, but really what is the difference? It's literally the same thing. So shopping actually gives us an endorphin rush, which is similar to working out. So we can actually become addicted to the pleasure of buying something new. And this, alongside clever consumerist-based marketing, it makes it really difficult for us to stop. So reducing looks at simplifying and reducing the amount of products you buy and use. So the less that you actually allow into your home, the less waste you'll produce as a result. So you can start doing this by decluttering your house and also by doing a spending freeze. So trying to really ignore those impulses of buying something new. So next we have reuse. So reusing is simply extending a product's usefulness before it's recycled, composted, or sent to landfill. So almost all disposable items can be easily replaced with reusable ones. So this will significantly reduce your personal production of waste. And these can include, but definitely aren't limited to, renting. So this can include clothes, occasion furniture, crockery, decorations, sharing or swapping. So carpooling, you can swap books, arrange different things there. You can have reusable water bottles and shopping bags, reusable razors, shampoo or conditioner bars, metal straws and reusable cleansing pads, just as a small amount of the massive amount of things that you can use. And really generic items can be reused and reimagined into something completely different. So it'll be really good for you to get your creative juices flowing, and here's some inspiration here. And I really particularly liked the piano with the waterfall. I think that's a really great way to create something that's no longer of use in its original state and making it something else, which is really amazing to look at. So next we have recycling. So recycling is really typically the first thought that comes when you to manage waste in the home. That's the first thought that comes to you. However, based on the waste hierarchy, it doesn't top the list. So refusing, reducing and reusing are preferable to recycling. So recycling is actually a great place to start living a sustainable life, but it's a terrible place to stop. So why is this then? So when you reuse a product rather than recycling it, you save a significant amount of energy that would have been used to remanufacture it into something else. So recycling also produces pollution and additional waste, as raw materials and resources would be required to create a new product. And we have rot. So when it comes to food waste, composting should be our most preferred option after refusing and reducing. So rather than putting your food waste straight into the normal bin, make your own compost bin outside. So did you know you can compost a range of wonderful things such as eggshells, hair and nail clippings, cardboard, so that could include cereal packaging, toilet roll tubes, egg boxes. You can also compost waste paper and junk mail, including shredded confidential waste, paper towels and bags, hay, straw, wood shavings, typical bedding from pets, such as rabbits and guinea pigs. So a compost bin is a great natural environment and habitat for many important microbes, organisms and animals. So composting also reduces the amount of waste we have in our landfill sites, which we want to avoid. So just to round this up, so refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle and rot, and only in that order. And that is a really great quote from Bea Johnson, who is a founder of the Zero Waste Lifestyle Movement. So now I will hand over to Marta, who will go through what are the different ways we can reimagine waste.
So we've got 4 examples here, and just a note that these are not the only 4 examples of the ways that you can reimagine waste in. These are just the ones that we could come up with. So obviously, if you have any other ideas, I'm sure they're great, so do implement them. So the first example is using new fabrics and materials. Because particularly in wealthier countries, our lives are a lot more sterile nowadays than they used to be. And for a lot of things, we simply cannot forego packaging. And we also cannot stop wearing clothes and carrying bags of the items that we use every day. So a couple of solutions to that would be, first of all, biodegradable compostable packaging, which is not a silver bullet by any means, but it's important to note that the vast majority of traditional plastic packaging is made from virgin plastic, i.e. crude oil. So reducing demand for traditional plastic keeps this fossil fuel in the ground. But it's also important to note that there are issues with bioplastics, whether it's unclear how to dispose of them, so that they do actually biodegrade. A lot of them unfortunately aren't home compostable, so you wouldn't be able to put them in your compost pile in your garden. And they need high temperatures of industrial composters to actually break down. But at the same time, when disposed alongside traditional plastics, they can contaminate batches and harm recycling infrastructure. So it's really important that when biodegradable or compostable packaging is used, it's labelled very, very clearly, and the recycling system works in a way that that would actually get them to biodegrade. Additionally, on this point, we can make fabrics from waste parts of plants or food waste. So in recent years, some leather alternatives have been getting more and more popular, such as Pinetex, which is made from pineapple leaf fibre. But there are also leather alternatives from apple peels, from leftover temple flowers in India, from wine waste in Italy. So they basically take the skin, stalks and seeds of grapes and make them into skin. Not all of these, or I'm not even sure if any of them, are actually biodegradable. So for example, for Pinetex, it's coated with a petroleum-based resin, making it not biodegradable yet. But the brand that created the material is working on a bio-based coating that would hopefully make the fabric biodegradable in the future. So this is something that's still in the works. So leather alternatives are obviously mainly used for things like shoes and bags. But there are also silk-like fabrics from orange peels, or you can make yarn from coffee grounds. So it's really exciting to be living in the current era and just being able to see all of these things coming from food waste. Next slide, please. Thank you. Another example is about reclaimed and repurposed building materials. So I have quite a few friends at the moment that are renovating houses, and they've really seen shortages in building supplies and really, really high prices at the moment. And that's because construction never stopped during the pandemic, but material manufacturing did, and that's basically catching up with us at the moment. In the UK, the construction industry is responsible for 62% of all total waste in the country. And so this is data from 2018 from DEFRA. 13% of all materials that are delivered to building sites go unused and turn straight into waste. and the sector is responsible for 11% of global carbon emissions. So that is quite a lot of greenhouse gases that go to the atmosphere only for the products that were produced with them not to be used. But fortunately, there is some things that we can do about all of that waste. So, for example, reselling of those spare unused materials. There are platforms that are being developed for building companies to be able to do that. You can source materials from demolition sites, so things like reclaimed bricks or wood. But also, again, some innovation is also coming in, and it's very, very exciting to see that you can use materials that are made from waste. So, for example, panels and flooring from recycled cork. So, for example, old wine corks can be made into those. There are alternatives to traditional concrete, such as timbercrete that use sawdust as a component, or ferroc, which is made mostly of waste steel dust and also absorbs carbon dioxide as it dries. This is really important because production of cement, which is a component of concrete, is responsible for whooping 8% of global emissions in total. So that is a lot for just one cycle of production. There are also insulation materials that are being made from recycled denim, and a new version of wood, so to say, made from old newspapers. And it's actually non-combustible and waterproof. So this might not be a very exciting slide to you at the moment, but at some point in the future, you will probably be looking into property. So this hopefully will be useful, and hopefully in the future we'll see even more really exciting repurposed building materials coming in. The next slide focuses on harnessing the power of nature. So the first bacterium that had evolved to eat plastic was discovered by scientists in 2016 at a waste dump in Japan. And some further work made the enzyme responsible for breaking PET plastic. So PET plastic is the plastic used for bottles. So some further work made the enzyme responsible for breaking it even more efficient than it was when it was first discovered. And some new research from October of last year found over 30,000 different enzymes capable of degrading 10 different types of plastic. 12,000 of them were found in the ocean and 18,000 in soil samples from across the globe. So what we can see from that is that the environment's responding to plastic pollution, and working with the power of nature could potentially mean that industrial application and biodegradation of industrial plastic waste would be possible. And this would reduce the need for production of new plastics, which, as I've mentioned, come from crude oil. But do take this with a pinch of salt, because all of these innovations with these new bacteria won't happen immediately, and we still need to deal with the plastics that are already here and are still being produced. And we should start with heavily reducing our demand and reliance on plastic rather than rely on potential future innovations, because we're really not sure when those will be possible, but the hope is there. And finally, is using waste as art, because art has a power to inspire action. So sculptures and other artworks made from waste materials that are difficult, expensive, or impossible to recycle can highlight the problem to a different demographic than a typical activist one. And importantly, it prolongs the life cycle on those things that are problematic to deal with. So on the slide, you can see a artwork by a duo from Mexico called Guerra de la Paz, which was made from garments that they found, a metal wine bucket stand, and it illustrates an atomic bomb explosion. So that's pretty cool. This artwork I found on a website called Artworks for Change. They have a whole gallery with the works of this artist duo, and you can see some more examples of art focused on social and environmental themes on there that are often made with repurposed waste. And actually, this is not something that's very new. Back in the old days, even Pablo Picasso used to use waste to create art with it. So that's something that's pretty cool, and some of the things that people create are really, really incredible to look at.
Great, thank you. So just to wrap everything up then, we just wanted to kind of say how important it is to note that it is a privilege to be able to be selective about reimagining waste. And for many, the reality is that some options are inaccessible. So there's several reasons why someone may not be able to implement the 5 R's of zero waste, for example, or reimagining waste. So we'd really like you to take a minute to think about this really. So what circumstances would mean that somebody might not be able to make changes to their waste behaviours, even if they wanted to? So let's take a minute to think about that, and then we'll go through that in a second. Okay, so hopefully you've had some ideas, and these are the ones that we came up with, and this is definitely not limited to these ones, but these are the main ones that we came across. So as the title says, inequalities can prevent action in some cases. So one of these is financial situations. So some sustainable zero waste options can be more costly in the short term. So many single-use products are significantly cheaper than some reusable ones, which make them more desirable to those with less disposable incomes. And regarding disabilities as well, so single-use items such as bendable plastic straws are necessary for those with certain disabilities in order for them to consume food and drink. And typically the zero waste movement has excluded disabled voices in their messaging. And this is also referred to as eco-ableism, and it's a form of discrimination towards individuals with disabilities through an ecological and environmental lens. And then we also have access to knowledge and information. So some individuals do not have the access to information about what zero waste is and how it would work. And this can lead to a one-sided movement that expects people to know about it without offering the means to. So after giving you all of this information and, you know, really great ways on how you can reimagine waste and apply the concepts of zero waste, we really want to hone in on the fact that doing what you can, when you can, and how you can is definitely the most important. So to wrap up then, we have some links to some really useful resources, and this is a great starting point for you to have a look into waste and how we can start tackling it and the different ways that it has been explored by a range of different people. So we've got some really great TEDx talks, art walks for change, and some really great articles as well. And there's so much more on the internet and on our social media pages as well. So we'd like to thank you for watching, and yes, please keep in touch through our email, hello@srtk.org, and our website, especially our main webpage and our Student Switch Off webpage. And we have social media pages as well. So we have Twitter and Facebook and also Instagram. So we'd encourage you to follow us on there for more webinars and opportunities. So thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.